pretend you have a thermometer where on one end you have change talk and on the other end you have sustained talk. During a conversation, you'll kind of feel whether you are getting more change talk or sustained talk. And if you are able to picture it in your mind as a thermometer, when you get change talk, you're going a step or a degree closer to the top. When you get sustained talk, you're going towards the bottom. So if you see it like that, at least for me, it works wonders. I'm able to see how closer and closer I am getting to that change talk. And that's really how it works. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MI for Change. I am your host, Dr. Monica Gilbert, and today we're going to talk about something that I have been hearing through all of these moments, all of these different episodes of motivational interviewing that I've been participating in, that I've been facilitating. I often have participants ask me, well, where do I start? If I'm completely new to MI, I've never taken a counseling course in my undergrad, where do I start? What ORS skill do I start with? And how do I even integrate it into the session so it doesn't sound weird or it doesn't sound fake? So I'm also going to be going over some of my most asked questions that were left in the comments, that were asked on my Instagram. I want to go over these because I think it's really important for me to answer them, since a lot of people have a lot of the same kind of questions. First, I want to share with you guys a definition of motivational interviewing that I put together. I had a participant in one of my webinars ask me, well, how do you objectively define motivational interviewing? And of course, I gave the definition in the book by Miller and Rotnick. But I was like, you know what? I want to come up with my own definition of what I feel motivational interviewing is, in a way where we can objectively see it, where we can objectively define it, and where it really capture most of the things. Now, this was like an entire long definition, of course, and I really tried to narrow it down. Thank you, ChatGPT, for existing. And hopefully, this is one that sticks with you. Hopefully, this is one that makes sense with you. And I'm always open for change myself. So if anyone has any suggestions on how I can tweak it, how I can make it more objective or better, please let me know. So this is what I came up with. It says, motivational interviewing is the intentional arrangement through timing, tone, and type of verbal contingencies designed to evoke, differentially reinforce, strengthen, and generalize change talk. This was actually the short version. You don't want to hear the long version. You guys are going to go to sleep if you hear that one. But I put this together and let's break this definition down. So, first, it starts with MI is the intentional arrangement. And I think that word intentional is so important. And I've been learning through my studies in motivational interviewing in the Mint conference that I went to in October. I've been learning a little bit more of this intentional piece of MI. One of the myths is that MI is just used to form good relationships and good rapport with your clients. That's true. That's true. We need that connection piece. That connection piece is really important. But that connection piece on its own doesn't really move clients towards change. We need more. And that more is that intentional piece. So, what do I mean by intentional piece? When we are using our skills, our micro skills, our ORs, differentially reinforcing change talk. When we are doing all of that, there has to be a goal behind it. It has to be done with intention. What's the intention? To help the client move towards that change. And so we're using these skills again in a way that is intentional. And that requires more skill. That requires not only watching webinars, but also attending consultations and doing in vivos and role playing and actually putting it to work. So that's that intentional piece, which also has to do with softening sustained talk and really trying to accentuate more of that change talk. So, intentional arrangement through timing, tone, and type of verbal contingencies. Timing is everything. I remember I had an intern that I was supervising, and in the middle of the client that she was seeing, the client was like crying because she was going through grief. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the intern just brings out an affirmation. And she was a little shocked to hear that the person who was crying, her client, was just a little, I guess, I don't know, just felt a little weird about her doing that during the session. Her client kind of like made this jump, and my intern was telling me about it, and I was like, "Well, I don't think it was the right timing." Affirmations, you can't just like throw them in there when the client is expressing all this grief and all of this heartache. So definitely timing. That's something that you learn through practice, and timing, just like tone, is very important. I think I've spoken about amplified reflections in the past and how important tone is. Because if I say something like, you really don't believe that those studies are good at all, versus, you really don't believe that those studies are good at all. So there is a slight intonation there, and it changes the way that that sentence or that phrase is perceived. It completely adds this autoclitic that that other person will either see as, okay, this person is just being sarcastic, or they're really doing this out of curiosity. So timing and tone, super important. And then the type of verbal contingencies designed to evoke, differentially reinforce, strengthen, and generalize change talk. So we're talking here about the ors. We are using the ors in a way that is intentional through each of the four phases of the MI process. And we are doing it again with that goal in mind. And just to give a quick review, the four micro skills, as some call it, are O for open ended questions, A for affirmations, R for reflections, and S for summary. And for some of you who like to add the I, like I do, that is where we interchange information. And the four processes of motivational interviewing are engagement, which is that first process where we're like, hi, and we try to build rapport with the client. Then we have our focus process, where it's where we're trying to focus. What are we working on? What are we working on here? What's the goal? And then we have our evoke. Let's try to evoke those solutions. Let's try to evoke those different plans from the client. And then we finish it off with planning. Let's start with that planning phase, and then we get to work. So, well, actually, we don't get to work there. We're working throughout this entire processing. So I like to think about it as, imagine that you're going up the stairs, and you're going up the stairs with your skill sets, right? With your little book bag or your little purse with all your oars inside of them. So every step you take, you're either going to go into the engage, then you're going to go to the focus, then the evoke, and then the planning. And then you're using the skill sets that are inside of your book bag or your purse in each of these steps. So think about it like that. That's what you're doing. Now, when it comes to what skill should I use? Like, how do I even start using this? Don't forget to take the spirit of MI with you. Oftentimes, we are so focused on, we have to get that change talk. We have to categorize it using the darn CAD. We have to make sure that we're getting this and that, that we forget to be human beings. We forget to just have a natural conversation with the client. So don't forget to be a human first. Secondly, take the spirit of MI with you. Make sure that you're first building a partnership. You're having this collaborative conversation with your client. You guys are on the same path. You're guiding them, you're going with them. You're listening to them. You are asking the right questions. You are digging in with curiosity. Then you want to also accept their autonomy, accept that they have strengths, accept that they can do this on their own. You're just there to guide them. And also make sure that you are evoking, you're compassionate, you're really trying to dig out those ideas from them. Evoking, as I've always said, is the hardest part for us as solution focused professionals to actually do, because we are always looking for the solution. We're always trying to help our clients, and it really comes from a place of good. But that fixing reflex, remember, that fixing reflex gets in the way, and it may make that client fall into this discord with you and just really evoke sustained talk, which is what you want to stay away from. So instead of doing that, you want to evoke that from them. Even if sometimes you know the solutions, have them come up with it. Kind of hint and dance around the solution and say it without saying it, if that makes sense, so they can come up with it. The first thing that you should do as a very new practitioner in the field of MI is use reflections. Reflections are an easy way to just come in there and just mimic what the client is saying. Remember, you don't want to sound like a parrot, you want to sound like a person, but reflect on what they're saying, reflect on what perhaps they're missing out on. When you start using reflections, you may feel a little, maybe a little skeptical in going in to the nonverbals, to the let me see what they mean by saying this or what are they not saying. Let me reflect that. That's completely normal. So just reflect what they're saying. So, yeah, it sounds like that was really sucky for you. You seem really frustrated when that happened. I Yeah, that seems really harsh. So you're simply just reflecting and siding with them. That's exactly what you're doing. Later on, as you become better at using your skills, or you become more skillful at using all of these, then you can start using reflections with another intention in mind. Next, open-ended questions. So you don't want to just use open-ended questions all the time, but at least in the beginning, try to get more information from the client. And you don't want it to be like a list where you're asking like name, date of birth, that list that we see a lot of the times. You want it to become natural. So tell me a little bit more about that. How did that happen? What were some things that happened there? Describe the situation to me. I'm trying to understand. Tell me a little bit more about it. Very natural, very normal. And really, it's coming in with the mindset. I've said this in the past, and motivational interviewing is not just a set of skill, it is a mindset. If we, before our session, we tell ourselves, let's come into this session with curiosity. I simply want to come in and meet the parent, and I'm curious to know what their challenges are. Like, what's standing between them and their actual, like, change? What's standing between them using this procedure that they know is effective, that makes total sense? Why aren't they doing it? What's standing in the way? Like, come in thinking about what are those challenges, and then you can move forward with everything else. But how can we start working with a parent if we don't know what these challenges are? So, you want to use the open ended questions for that and come in with a different mindset. I know that oftentimes, sometimes, not oftentimes, we have clients that are difficult, that are rebels, that are, have their own ideas and really, or sometimes they're just very passive in the change cycle. They're coming to you, they're telling you this is the problem, you're giving them solution, and they're coming to you again with the same problem, not doing what you asked them to do. So we get clients that come in different parts of their readiness cycle. And and, and again, when the client does come to you, you're going to feel frustrated if that continues to happen. And that is you being a human, that is very normal. I invite you to see it differently. Try to meditate. Try to sometimes writing something down that you can tell yourself before the session, like a little mantra that you can say before the session can help. But come in with a different mindset. That makes the whole difference of the session. You will see. Come in with a different mindset. That's number one, if you're a new practitioner using this. Number two, use reflection. Start with that and open ended question. And then you can start using these other techniques. Then you can start using more of these complex reflections, like double sided reflections or amplified reflections, then summarizations, and also affirmations. And you can start using that during your session. Again, this is not um like a battle to see who is able, or a race to see who's able to use more oars. This is simply just working with your client and knowing how to communicate more effectively so that you can intentionally work with them and help them move towards that change that they and you want to see in the session. The third thing is that while you're communicating with clients, become curious about their values. What are their values? What do I mean by values? Oftentimes, clients are stuck in the middle, they're ambivalent. And the reason for that is that part of them finds benefits in the behavior that they're engaging in. And the other part of them doesn't find that benefit. Obviously, we want to reinforce or stay on that part that doesn't see the benefit. But we don't want to ignore that part that sees the benefit because we want to acknowledge that and perhaps find a replacement for that. For example, let's say that you're working with a parent, and whenever the parent is out in the park and their child has a huge tantrum, they give them everything they want. Well, that behavior of giving the child everything they want when they have a tantrum, it works for the parent because when they do that, they don't feel embarrassed. When they do that, they can sit down and chat with the other moms while they're in the park. When they do that, they aren't like sweating and dealing with this child's tantrums, right? So there is a reason that is maintaining their behavior. It's important to acknowledge that so then we can perhaps find other ways that they can cope with it, or maybe we can just talk about it. And just by doing that, it changes. So it's important to see what are their values. And their values are, perhaps this parent is to stay calm. Their values is to have a break. Their value is not to see their child in distress, or perhaps for strangers to not see their child in distress. So again, you want to align with the parents or the clients, whoever it is that you're working with their values. If you don't align with their values, you guys are not partnering up. You aren't working together. You're not on the same team. And that's not really going to be effective at all. So, number one, you want to come in with curiosity, change your mindset. Number two, use reflections and open ended questions at first. And then number three, align with the client's values. Those are three things that if you start doing them during your session right now, you will definitely see the change. It's really easy to use. You don't have to use a cheat sheet. You don't have to write anything down on your hand so then you can look at it while you're speaking with a parent. Please don't do that. Don't do that. I tried that when I started years ago, and that just backfired. But anyways, my hands got sweaty and all that. Anyways, try those three methods and you will see that it definitely makes a difference. So another question that I tend to get is, how are these methods? How do I know that what I'm doing is working? And a lot of the times you don't know. That's the truth. You're not really measuring, well, the client is engaging in 4 instances of change talk, and on baseline, they're engaging in two. So I'm making progress. It's really difficult to do that. And because it really fluctuates, I like to think about it as having a thermometer. Pretend you have a thermometer where on one end you have change talk, and on the other end you have sustained talk during a conversation. And of course, if you can tally, it is way better because it's more precise. But during a conversation, you'll kind of feel whether you are getting more change talk or sustained talk. And if you are able to picture it in your mind as a thermometer, when you get change talk, you're going a step or a degree closer to the top. When you get sustained talk, you're going towards the bottom. So if you see it like that, at least for me, it works wonders. I'm able to see how closer and closer I am getting to that change talk. And that's really how it works. You're throwing things out there. Sometimes you're intentional. Sometimes it works. Other times it doesn't. And at the end of the day, the client will tell you with their behavior. You will see that they will start engaging in these behaviors. For example, if they are misusing drugs or alcohol or something like that, well, you'll see that they have more sober days, or perhaps you'll see them at least trying to have more sober days. If it's a parent that you're working with in parent coaching, you'll see that the parent is starting to use the techniques outside of it, or at least they're talking about the techniques, or they're telling you that they see the value in those techniques. So all of that is change talk. If you're working with your staff, you'll see that they've attempted at least to start taking data the right way. And that is a move towards that change. Is it exactly what we want to see? Probably not. But again, shaping takes time and it takes patience, and it's one step at a time. So you want to use that until you're able to get to that point where you see change. And sometimes you're just there and it just doesn't happen, and that's okay. It's a conversation that you are going to also have with your client. Another question I get is, how do you know when to quit? And it's not about quitting, because we are not in a race, we are not in anything like that. But if your client simply doesn't want to move towards change, or they're not ready, because it doesn't have to do with not wanting. I think when we start thinking, okay, my client is not there yet because they're not ready, it completely reshapes the way that we see it. So it's not that they don't want to, it's not that they're resistant to it, it's not that they don't respect us as professionals, it's just that they're not ready to go there, right? Like, think about it. Think about a client that you are working with that's very quote unquote resistance. And now think about it, or say, you know what, this client is not ready to go there yet. It completely changes everything. You're not as frustrated, you're more forgiving, you're more patient. And that's the way that it works. So some clients are just not ready, and that's okay. We can have a conversation and say, look, seems like you're just not ready to go there yet, and that's okay. Perhaps these services are not really helping you, and maybe we can talk again in a couple months when you feel more ready. And again, that's okay. And it preserves your energy. These techniques are not just for clients. So I am not disseminating motivational interviewing just so you can have fun, nice, intentional conversations with your clients. It's also for you, for the clinicians. I've seen so much burnout. I see so many of us that do so much, and it's great that we do that much. However, sometimes clients are just not ready to go there yet. And if you're doing more than what the client is able or is willing to do, you're going to expend your energy. That energy can be used with another client. That energy can be used for you. There's no reason why you should feel frustrated. There's no reason why you should feel like you're constantly having this mount on your shoulder, this responsibility of change. So, as we close the year, I want to leave you with all of those different type of, I guess, different lessons that I just spoke about. And please let me know what you would like to talk about. Next year is going to be a year full of, I'm sure, challenges, because every year has challenges. Hopefully, 2026 doesn't go by so quickly as 2025 did. But I promise to bring you more value into these episodes. Let me know. I love feedback. Let me know what you would like to hear more about. And I'm just excited. I'm just excited to connect with you more. I'm excited to do more of these episodes, and we'll see where motivational interviewing takes us. So I will see you guys next year in our newest episodes. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of MI for Change. If you're ready to keep growing your motivational interviewing skills, I'd love to invite you to explore my MI Academy, where you'll find a full library of on-demand courses designed to help you put MI into practice with confidence. You can learn more at www.drmonicagilbert.com. Until next time, keep asking the questions that spark change.